Hey, you've made it to the last day. We've been spending 5 days sharing 5 principles of self mastery. This is the fifth principle. I think you're going to absolutely love it. This is one I'm really excited to share with you. So let's jump right in. Yesterday, we talked about the principle of the dream. And the principle of the dream was how we can shift from multiplying the negative in our life by focusing on the positive. And even if we don't have evidence of positive, if the environment we're in, the story, our relationships, everything around us is negative and it's hard for us to see the positive, we can focus on a dream, a positive dream, something that doesn't even currently exist. We can focus on that and use that to create the positive thoughts, feelings, and actions to create positive results in our life, which then becomes the evidence that we were searching for. It's pretty magical. I really like that principle. So what now? Well, next, our final principle is to talk about the principle of the change, and to really understand how change actually happens in our life. To take this from theory to actual practicality. Let's jump right in. To start, here we go. First, we need to do some mirror work. So in order to change, we need to understand what it is we're changing. So we need to understand, imagine that's a mirror, the gray box, and I'm standing in front of it. We need to take a good look at ourselves in that mirror, and we need to ask ourselves, who am I really? What is it that I'm changing? If you were to look at the mirror and ask yourself this, what would you say? Most of us would default to our story. We would talk about things like where we came from or where we grew up. I am from Spanish Fork, Utah, and so that's who I am, right? Or we might talk about where we work, or we might talk about our wife or our kids, that we're parents, or that we have siblings, and what our siblings were like. Is that who we are? Or we might talk about things that describe us. For example, the music that we like, or the food that we like, or the car that we drive, or the house that we live in, or possibly the things we want, the house we want, the car we want. Is this who we are? Really? Does this describe who we are? To really understand this, we need to go back to the law of the harvest. Do you remember that one? The law of the harvest, what we focus on multiplies that whole thing. Let's go back to the very start of that and look at the apple. How would you describe an apple? Is it sweet? Well, yes. Is it red? Is it crispy? Does it grow on a tree? Does it have a bruise? Does it have a worm? Does it have a stem, a skin, flesh, a seed? Does this describe the apple? Yeah, that describes an apple, right? Really? We haven't even talked about its potential. Would we get closer to describing it if we talked about that? Is the apple's potential another apple? Well, yeah, we talked about how it can create another apple. But is it the tree? Is it the fact that it can create an apple? Is it the fact that it can create a tree? Is it the fact that it can create apples who can create apples? So I guess that would be grand apples, right? Or great grand apples, or an entire orchard. Is that who the apple is? Is that what an apple is really? Well, it helps us understand more about it, but we've missed some things. What about the joy that people receive from the apple? What about the fact that apples have fed multitudes of people over time? What about the apple pies that were made that people have enjoyed? Does that describe the apple? Or is it the awe of someone who notices the apple's beauty? Is it the awe that they get when they notice its intricacy, even under a microscope, of what amazing things are going on in the apple? Or is it the beauty of the work of artists who try and portray an apple, who have to draw an apple to get shading and roundness right and capture the beauty of an apple? Is that what an apple is? Or is it the stories that we tell about it? Is it about growing up with an apple tree and taking a delicious apple off the tree when it was ripe in the fall and taking a big juicy bite? Is that the apple? Is it the memories of those apples that we have in our lives? Is it the thoughts of future apples? and the discovery of the benefits and uses and even the beauties of apples that we can't even comprehend now. As you can see, there's a lot going on there. Is all this the apple? Well, the answer is yes. It's all this. But it's a whole lot more. Discovery of what an apple is the great unveiling and learning of the apple through time. It's hard to describe an apple. It really is. And the more that we describe it, the more we can understand it. But it is a discovery over time as we learn more and more and more about what an apple really is. And that's just an apple. So, what about you? Who are you really? What is your potential for growth? What's your potential for learning, for good, for becoming, for loving, for inspiring, for nurturing, for leading, for creating? Can you start to see that you are more than who you were? That you are more than what your story was? You're more than the descriptions about your physical body, about the things that you have, about the things that you want. You're more than all this. You're more than what other people say about you. You're more than what people experience from you right now. You're more than what they experienced in the past. You're more than what they experience in the future. Your story is a great unveiling of an exquisitely unique being who has infinite potential to grow, to learn, to create, and to influence for generations. It's hard for us to describe. In some ways, all we can do is get glimpses of it. It's massive. It's amazing. And wow, you're truly someone. That's who you are really. And when we operate through life without a correct perspective of who we are really, it's hard to change. Because all we see is who we were or our environment around us, and we get stuck. But when we can realize that we are so much more than that, the possibility of change starts to happen. Sometimes that can feel a bit overwhelming. We can realize that our potential is great, and it can feel so difficult for us to actually realize that potential. Because why? I make mistakes. I don't know about you. I make lots of mistakes. And I do things that I know I shouldn't do at times. I have bad habits. I'm in hard environments at times. You probably are too. You might have strained relationships. The reality of my present and sometimes my past can keep me from feeling like it's ever practical that I could realize my future. What use is potential if it can never be realized, right? And I've been there. I've definitely felt that. Remember this: we understand. While we understand, in theory, it's possible to change our situation, and to change our thoughts and our hearts and our actions and our environment, that whole cycle. In practicality, it really can feel impossible, especially if we look at the environment that we're in or we came from. Principle number 2, we talked about how much negativity comes from our environment around us, from our phones, from our news, from the people around us, even people who love us. There can be so much negativity that comes into us. It can make us feel like we're anchored and we can't change. We feel stuck on the devil's side of the line. We feel full of negativity with no practical way of actually getting out. That's where our 5th principle comes in. That is where we need to understand the principle of change. So, back to the mirror. There was a time in my life, not so long ago, where I was feeling stuck. I was feeling broken, and I was feeling like my life was already over before I'd even finished living it. I was in a job I didn't want. I was in a home that didn't fit. I had finances that were going down and couldn't support us. I looked at my past And I had a past that I was not proud of. I had relationships that were strained. I had a marriage that wasn't what I wanted it to be. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a man who was just broken. I saw a man whose past had caught up with him. I'd lived a long enough life to have mountains of evidence around me that I couldn't change, or if I could change, my faults or problems would so overwhelm the little bit of good that I could do that I'd just be stuck. And if I ever really could change, it would take forever. And that I'd probably be dead by the time I change and made any progress. This is the way that I felt. I felt this way until I started to understand the true power of change. It's at that time that I came up with the idea of becoming a powerhouse. And I had to understand what it would take to move me from being broken and powerless to gaining power to where I could actually change things to the way I wanted them. So, how do we understand the power of change? What is it that I discovered? If I looked at this mirror, I see what? If I'm looking at a mirror, I see reflected back to me the now. And that's exactly what I was doing. If I have bag under my eyes, now I look in the mirror and it reflects back to me, yep, you have bags in your eye, under your eyes. If I looked at my relationships in the mirror, I pulled in my strained relationships, it's going to reflect back to me, yes, Britt, you have strained relationships. If I tell the mirror my past stories, the past I'm not happy or proud of, it's going to tell me right back exactly what I told it. That's what the mirror does. But we need to take a longer view to understand us. Remember, we can't describe ourselves by the now. We have to take a longer view, just like we had to take a longer view of the apple to start to get a glimpse of what the apple was. So what happens if we put this mirror in front of another mirror? What would we see then? It looks something like this, right? Hopefully you've had this experience. If not, just imagine. It looks something like this. I remember someone showing me this once. It's the effect that happens when you have two mirrors in front of each other and they reflect each other. And the cool thing is it reflects back and it looks like it goes on forever. In fact, someone told me that it goes on forever, that our eyes will fail to perceive as it goes longer the detail, but it continues to go on forever. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which was just amazing to me as I thought about it. I think this does represent forever. If we look in the mirror in front, I see reflected forever. And think about it like a horizon. The horizon, the curve of the earth, I can't see forever. But in a mirror, in theory, right, it would just go on for eternity. And if I look behind me, guess what? I could see eternity behind me, which is a cool thought. Here I am now in the present. I've got eternity in front of me. I've got eternity behind me. Now what do I see? Well, I did this once. I found myself in front or in between two large mirrors. Large mirror in front, large mirror in the back. And I looked at it. And what do you think I saw? Imagine yourself in front of these two large mirrors. You're in front looking at what do you see? Well, you see yourself. Bags under my eyes and everything like that. But the thing you see is you see yourself repeated and repeated. And that's what I saw. I saw myself repeated in time. Again and again and again and again forever. And if I look behind me, I saw myself repeated again and again and again forever. And you know what it told me? It didn't change. All I saw was a repeat of exactly of what was right now. The future looked the same forever. If I had bags under my eyes now, I had bags under my eyes forever. So I looked behind me. My past was the exact same as my future, or as my present. I was always what I was in the past, and I would always be what I am in the future. That's a depressing thought. And I was thinking about it. It's like, nothing changes. As I was staring and contemplating that, I think it was an itch on my nose or my face, and I moved my hand to scratch that itch. And to my surprise, when I did that, all of the future changed. My hand moved throughout eternity and scratched my face. And I looked and I thought, oh, wait. I put up two hands high in the mirror, and all of eternity changed from that moment on. I looked behind me with my hands in the air, and my entire past had changed. I could see my hands. It was a profound moment for me. I realized that I actually can change my future, and I can understand my present or my past by what I choose to do right now in the present. Someone once said that you can't change the future and you can't change the past. You can only change the present. And the reality is that when we change the present, we really do change our future, and our ability to understand the past is changed at the same time. Like I said, it was a profound moment in my life. So, the principle of the change is that we actually can change. That when we choose to act now in the present, it actually happened. It is in our mirror in the past because it happened. And it's in our mirror in the future because it happened. This means that we can actually change our environment. We can actually influence the people around us. We can actually change ourselves. We can actually change our thoughts. We can actually change our feelings. We can actually change our actions and the results in our lives. We can actually do this now, in the present. And by so doing, we change the future and our understanding of the past. That's profound. It actually happens. It actually changes. So how do we change? Well, it starts just like a fire. It starts with a spark. It starts with a belief. It starts with faith. And then we act. We scratch our face. We put our hand in the air. We wake up on the right side of the bed. We change a habit. We choose to read something different. We choose to turn something off. We choose to say something new. We choose to stop saying something else. All of these actions change our future and change and reveal to us more about who we are from our past, which is way cool. In some ways, this is a one-time event. What we do actually happened. Eternity has changed. In other ways, it's a continual choice. We choose things again and again. And over time, we find ourselves changing, evolving, growing. And as we do that, our situation, the mirror around us, morphs and changes. Our relationships can improve. Our environments can improve. Our finances can improve. That's cool. So, my whole goal during these last 5 days was to take you through a journey to help you understand if you felt like like I have at times, broken, powerless, that the power is actually here. It's in your hands. It actually works. You actually can change. And because of the law of the harvest, the law of multiplicity, the law of time and eternity, that I have plenty of time to change. Meaning, I can make a choice now and it will change the future and how I see the past. I can make another change and another change and another change. And over time, I will grow and I will become. The apple has the seed, which becomes the apple. And over time, it creates the orchard. It's the same thing with us. The power is in your hand and it's in the now. So, what's the path? We've spent 5 days talking about 5 principles. I'm going to go over the highlights of each of those principles now, and then we'll end our video here. Principle number 1, the line. We talked about good and evil. When we are on the devil's side or the negative side of the line, we're influenced by him. We're influenced by the negative. And we won't be able to reason if we are on this side. We won't see clearly. Remember, when we're on that side, everything looks negative. Everything always looked negative. Our relationships look negative. The future looks negative. Everything will seem negative. But there is a positive side of the line, and that's the key. Sometimes we forget. There's actually a positive side of the line. Sometimes we're so in the negative, and we look around, there's so much evidence of negative wherever we look that we can forget that there's even a positive side of the line. That's where people lose hope. That's where they give up. It's important to note there is a positive side of the line. It's the Lord's side of the line, is what I call it. It's what my grandpa calls it. It's the positive side. It's where things like joy, peace, happiness, laughter, light, all those things are found on the positive side of the line. It's where we can see clearly and we can see fully. The negative side of the line, we don't see anything. We see darkly. We want to be on the positive side of the line. Principle 1, there's a line. There is a positive and a negative side. We want to be on the positive side of the line. Principle number 2, the pull. Just like we are what we eat. If I eat junk, my body's going to show junk up. My energy is going to be junk energy. Just like we are what we eat, we are what we think. If we allow negative thoughts in, we will have negative feelings. And these will pull us towards that negative side of the line. We just need to be aware of this. And we need to be aware of what we're allowing into our minds and into our hearts. What media, what conversations, what music, what images are you allowing in? Are they not negative? Are they overtly negative? Are they subtly negative? Whatever we allow in will pull us to that side of the line. Is it negative or is it positive? We can allow positive things in and start to feel a pull towards the positive. That's the principle of the pull. Next, the principle of the law. The law of the harvest, we've talked about it. What we plant, we reap in multitude in time. Again, what we sow, we reap in multitude in time. What we focus on expands and multiplies over time. The other part of this, if we focus on the negative in our life, that will multiply. That which we are unwilling to stop seeing in our life, if we're looking at negative, or if not willing to stop looking at negative, it will create negative things in our mind. That which we are unwilling to stop thinking in our mind will create feelings in our heart. We allow it into our heart. That which we're unwilling to let go in our heart will create actions. And that which we are unwilling to stop doing will create our environment. And so we have this vicious cycle here in the negative. But it can be a righteous or a positive or creative cycle in the positive. Most of us experience the negative cycle of this at our times. We feel anchored away, but it doesn't have to be this way because we have that next principle of the dream. We can focus on the positive. We can start to think and feel and create positive in our lives. A very simple and one of the best ways to do this is by focusing gratitude, finding the silver thread, the silver lining in our lives, looking at the relationships that may be straight. They may not be what we want them to be, but finding things we can be grateful, sincerely, truly grateful for. As we look for that, we'll find more and more of it. And that starts this process of positive thinking. But it doesn't just start, well, it starts there, but it doesn't have to end there. We can even expand it more. Because sometimes we don't have a whole lot of positive, and we can expand it more because sometimes we don't have in our life the things that we want, right? The positive things that we want. We don't have evidence. We can be grateful for what we have, the positive things that we have, but what about the things that we don't have? That's where the principle of the dream comes in. We can we can think about positive things we wish we had, the good things in life that we want, that are good relationships, good things, good opportunities, good service, all those types of things. As we focus on that, we think good thoughts. If we are unwilling to let go of those good thoughts, they will become good feelings. If we're unwilling to let go of those good feelings, they will create good actions. And if we're unwilling to stop doing good actions, we'll create good results and create a good environment, which will be the evidence that we can then focus on and have more gratitude for. That is the principle of the dream. All of this works. It's actually possible. You can actually start it. The last principle, the principle of the change. What you do today, what you do now, cascades forward into eternity. It did happen. You did it. Congratulations. You may be doing a lot that you wish you didn't do, but for every good thing you have, it has tremendous results. Remember the law of multiplying? It totally starts to multiply. So you have the power to change your habits, your difficulties, your tendencies. You have the power to influence your relationships. You can now captain your life. You can actually mold your destiny. It starts when you start to choose rather than to act. It starts when you start to choose to act rather than simply react. When you choose to act, you get to participate in the great unveiling of who you are, who you really are. And that is the adventure of the lifetime, and it is completely worth it. I talked about that experience I had where I was broken, where I started to realize that there were principles or things in life that I needed to discover because what I was going in life wasn't taking me where I wanted to go. I felt stuck. I felt life was over. We've learned some of these principles. Oh, let's go down here. We've learned some of these principles right now. These principles of mastery really do work. If you incorporate them, they'll make a big difference in your life. They'll change. I know because it did and does for me. You become someone who acts, and you become someone who can lead, who can create. You become a powerhouse. That's what I wanted to share with you. If you've enjoyed learning these principles and you'd like to discover how to embed them into your life so that they're more than just, in one ear, out the other, to capture it in your mind, to get it into your heart, to get it into your actions, into your habits, I'd love to help. My goal is to help plug people into power in their lives so they can become the powerhouse in their own lives and in their homes so that they can become the powerhouse for the people that they love. So if you'd like to create more power in your life, please reach out to me. I offer classes, I do retreats, I do individual coaching, and I would love to help you make the change, to tap into the power, because it is an incredible journey. And it's a journey of discovery to find out who you really, really are. I'd love to be part of that process. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you.